Welcome back to another video, guys. It's Alacrity here. Today we're going to be talking about the state of TKG combat. This is a very sensitive topic, and I think as a community we've made some mistakes, and specifically in how we're communicating with the developers of the game. I mean, all the toxicity and whining that the community has been doing has resulted in this boy who cried wolf scenario now, where our opinion has no value or weight in the conversation of combat. And because players are like, oh, we want an update, we hate this update, people sending death threats in the developers' DMs. I mean, it's unbelievable. We just got to treat these developers better because TKG is a passion project, right? I mean, considering that they're not making any money, they're doing this out of their love for the game. So it's a passion project. The last thing I want to do is sit here and listen to people whine about the combat. I'm only here today to explain why the combat works, why it doesn't work, what's good, what's bad. I've been criticized for this opinion already, with people, saying I only want to move backwards instead of forwards. And in reality, this combat update is a revert to a lot of themes seen in the 2022 TKG combat, which is, 4 years old. This update also removed a lot of mechanics that made the combat deeper, more engaging, more expressive in skill, and it also made fights super drawn out. So now it's really hard to kill players. Everything feels like very frustrating to play, and it's very tedious. I really feel like I need to make a video to explain this properly because I don't think people understand, how the game's combat truly operates. I'm a weapon specialist. I am friends with a lot of players in the competitive community. We all kind of have this agreements that this current combat right now is definitely inferior to what we had in 2025, and a lot of players don't understand how the game's combat operates, and their opinion is still useful as a casual player, but the games are typically balanced around the peak performing players to ensure that how that trickles down is still balanced amongst the more casual combat players. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. I mean, we're going to start off by just mentioning there's a couple other things that I'm not going to mention in this video, but I'm going to be talking about the turtle style, right? And this is kind of the meta that's happening now. People are turtling. It's really easy to get away with playing super passive now because it's really hard to counter it, basically. And there's increased force cost on dashing now, which is the majority of attacks are done via dashing. So that increased force cost has made it harder for players to also punish that. But just because I'm not talking about that as much, we're going to get into the three main topics that are, hurting TKG combat and removing a lot of the skill expression, drawing out the fights, etc. And I'm going to try to explain it all for you guys so you understand. Starting off with momentum. What is momentum? Momentum was a tech where basically the faster you were moving and the more distance you covered, basically, the more damage you did on an opponent's block up to a degree of 40. So standard attack, 20 up to 40, based on how fast you're moving. Momentum allowed for acrobatics to have risk and reward instead of just risk. It allowed for fights to be more about movement, right? And being unique in how you're moving, because one hit from you could do a lot of damage on the enemy's block if you could move and still land that attack. It had a certain skill expression where you had to be good at the movement of the game to make it work. Now that attacks don't have momentum, there's no point in moving around a lot anymore. If you're doing that, honestly, you're just wasting your force now. It's inefficient. The meta now is you should stand still and you should spam animation cancels because that's what's going to do the most damage. And you moving around, you're not doing any more damage. You're just wasting your time because you're not going to get a hit on their block that's going to do meaningful damage anymore with like flip hits and stuff. This clearly ties into turtling meta because you can just turtle now, and players aren't going to block beat you nearly as hard as they used to be. Momentum allowed for that increased pressure on enemy block bars. It made fights quicker and less drawn out. Without momentum, fights last way longer now because players know they can just shell up and they're going to be fine. Like back then, if you shelled up like that, you were not going to be fine. You know what I mean? You were going to get your block beat and you were going to die because you had to know how that's going to work, or you're just cooked. I thought momentum should always have been optimized instead of removed entirely, right? Like I know there was some issues with momentum where you would take more damage off region because of your ping. It would just be harder on you because it's hard to explain, but basically it would register that you were farther behind or closer on your screen. So it glitched out and would register that you were moving quicker and you would take more damage from enemies. Personally, like I encountered this maybe slightly, but never to a point where I was like, oh, this needs to be removed from the game. This is horrible bug. The other thing I liked about momentum, the last thing I'll say, is that it added dynamic elements that made combat more three-dimensional, lore friendly, realistic, all those things. It just felt very cool that this game had momentum. That's an edge over other Star Wars games that I've played. Like they don't have momentum. It was a unique feature. It felt immersion. Now it's harder to break an enemy's block. Now with momentum, playing block beat, it's more efficient to just shell up and play for parries. I mean, parries are so strong now. So that, yeah, we'll just move into the next point being the snappier parries. Snappier parries reduced stun timers slightly. This gutted something called chase hitting. Chase hitting used to be the meta. I mean, it was a form of skill expression where if you knew how to chase hit, you were much better than players who didn't. And this was another thing that you don't see anymore because it doesn't work. The snappier parries made players recover slightly quicker and they're able to throw their parry faster now. So now that timing of going for a chase hit, it becomes not worth it anymore because you're just playing risky and players can consistently get a parry off on you on a chase hit. I mean, you can only land one if they mess up their evade. I'm trying to spare all the details of how this works, but basically you get stunned, you stun evade. Back in the day, you could get chased down and hit it for a second tick of damage instead of just one. And this was something that could be consistently pulled off with practice, and it was a way for you to increase your skill level. The other problem with snappier parries is that they're just stronger in general, so when you pair that with momentum loss, it's just more efficient to shell up and play for parries instead of attacking. And even when you attack, there's a new technique now which you can anim cancel into like an automatic parry. It feels wildly overtuned, and you're basically attacking with absolutely zero risk if you do that. So it's just spamming parries now is way better than just doing any other recent form of attacking. It's all animation cancel in the spam parry, so that's kind of the meta now. Moving into the third and final section, animation canceling. Where do I even start with animation canceling? It basically removed the risk in attacking whatsoever. Even if you get parried, you can just stun evade away, and now that there's no chase hits, I mean, you're only taking 20 HP of damage, which you're just gonna regen right away anyway. So it's just, this draws out the fight like crazy. And when I say the removed risk in attacking, I mean like, you can't get traded anymore, right? Animation canceling completely gutted trading. And players thought trading was OP, it wasn't, it just ended duels quicker, and there was plenty of counters to trading if you knew how to play the game. It's just a lot of casual players didn't, so they thought it was a problem. Instead of trying to solve that, they just decided that it was a bad technique and shouldn't be in the game, even though now, I mean, fights are so drawn out now that you literally have to sit there and exhaust every bit of your resources to try and get anything done. Without risk in attacking, besides parries, it's way harder to punish someone who just stands there and spams anim cancels. You know, with no momentum, you can just stand there, spam anim cancels, and you're basically doing what someone else is doing by flipping around, and there's no change. The game defining combat what used to be multis, and it was more skill expression in multis because you had to know how to trade properly, like how to do them right, how your mix-ups are going to fall in line. And all this stuff just gets completely removed from the game when animation canceling was added. I mean, it's just a free out where you can just, boom, you can just cancel and then you're out. I mean, it just feels so much more one-dimensional to the combat system we used to have with all the skill expression we used to have with the acrobatics, with the chase hitting, with the momentum damage where you could really put pressure on someone. And even specifically with the trading. I mean, trading was such a monumental part of combat. You had to trade strikes if you were going to attack. You weren't just going to attack and cancel it and have no repercussions on your block. Like, you were going to have to take a hit or two to give a hit or two. And that added such a different type of tension to the combat and reward to understanding how trading works. The overall consensus on all these 3 points in combination, in tandem, they were gutted in a way. And it wasn't necessarily intentional or thought through. It was just like, this is the repercussion that occurred because of this, and it combined into the turtle meta, but overall led to a way less combat expressive environment, or skill expressive environment, basically. I mean, it's just basically low skill gameplay. It feels spammy, it feels awkward, it doesn't even look appealing whatsoever, because most of the time you're playing it with animation cancels, like it just flashes on the screen, like you can't even tell what's happening anymore. You can anim cancel into an auto parry, so you literally can't be traded whatsoever. Low flip strike into a parry, and it still makes the sound and the saber trail, by the way, and it still parries you. So you can do 3 attacks within a second, and it's like, it's not fun because, I guess I'll make this its own topic, like, why isn't this combat fun? It's not fun because there's no reaction anymore, and the game feels so RNG and one-dimensional. All you do is stand there spamming animation cancels. You can't even react to them anymore because they're lightning fast, and you can't punish it because the enemies aren't committing to the attack anymore, they're just canceling it. And, you know, even if you land a parry on an person spamming anim cancels, like, they can just evade away and you can't chase at them anymore because people recover too quick. So, guys, all of this together, I'm trying to really keep this concise, but everyone agrees, all the high-performing combatants agree that this change really gutted the skill expression of combat. You know, all the juggernauts, the weapon specialists, Jat, E&D, Sense, Centurions, DHG. I think everyone can agree this combat is just like all the duels you have are just drawn out garbage. Like it feels so tedious to try and kill somebody now. I mean, players just can't even kill each other anymore. It's just a whole bunch of turtling and trying to break someone's block with a 20 hit point attack. It's just not enough. And there's no expression in it anyway, so you might as well just sit there and spam anim cancels to get away with it. But the main point is we got away from 22 combat for a reason initially. And people who say, I just want to move backwards, like I'm actually in favor of a lot of the skill expressive techniques that were removed from this update that I feel like, there's a thing about moving forwards. If an update is a regression, isn't that technically moving backwards? I mean, we removed more than we added to the combat with this. Like, yes, we added animation cancels, but that had a huge nerf on all the other cool things that have been developed thus far. I mean, it gutted almost everything we knew about the combat before. No more HP combat going on. It's all like around the block, this fat block bar you have to grind through, and you can't even, force has been nerfed, so you can't even attack as frequently. So, I mean, all this combines into a system that's just not very rewarding to play. But I know I should have maybe said this earlier, but there are some good things in this combat. For example, the new force abilities are really cool. I mean, they're great. And I will say the improved kicks, I think the kicks now are still good. I don't think that's really a problem. At some point, the cake is done baking, and I think what we had was there was way more skill expression, like I said, and it was more a complete system compared to what we have now, more three-dimensional. And now it's just kind of feels like it's less enjoyable for me. I don't feel like I enjoy this combat. I know a lot of players that feel that way. I really do. And I just wish that my opinion as a weapons researcher mattered more, I guess. But instead of being accused of all these things, wanting to move backwards, just being someone who whines. Like, I've never really whined about another combat update. I'm just telling the truth, you know what I mean? And I've been in favor of trying out new stuff. I mean, we've been at this for 6 months now, and players still feel this way. Okay, maybe it's time to think about what we can do to fix this, or maybe consider going back to some of the mechanics that people, liked before this big turtle meta, drawn out fight, spammy stuff going on. Anyway, thanks guys. Take care.